Signs of the Southland for Monday, November 18th, 2024. Your weekly podcast of Georgia Tech numbers and words. My name is Akshay Easwaran, and joining me today from a unseasonably warm Atlanta, Georgia, are Jack Purdy and Jay Grant. Gentlemen, how are we feeling on the third football bye week of the season?
I got home from work and did put on a hoodie just to try and simulate that it was somewhat cold and that now I'm hot in my own house. It didn't work. It backfired on me immediately.
It's about to drop off a shelf
This is
after
true.
after tonight. I took a look ahead because plotting weekly outfits and life and food
This
and things
is
like that. But
this is true.
yeah,
If you're going to the football game on Thursday, y'all, it's not going to be warm. It's a high of 52 that day. We're going to get the cold game we were promised against Miami, except against
yeah.
North Carolina State.
It's such a weird, like
The
that game was such a weird weather day. Like when you're
Yeah.
on, like right
what?
around 11:30. Like no, seriously, it's cloudy and it like feels cold. Like for the first part of the day, it like felt cold,
I
and then
I know no, I know what
immediately
you mean.
as a
Yeah.
game kicked off, the temperature skyrocketed.
I know what you mean
Yes,
because
I
there was
You are
understand
we
that's how
nuts.
like
no, no, no. Well,
heat
no,
works,
I
but
I think
still.
there's a mistranslation. There was this stretch of days where, especially because me and Akshay live not terribly, we live relatively close to each other, and for like 5 straight mornings, you just couldn't see any of the buildings because it was so foggy and so just not artificially cold, but just it'd be a little bit colder than it should be in the mornings, and then the skies would clear up at like 10:30 in the morning, 11, and then it would be like a normal spring feeling day, and it just happens that shifts in the weather pattern would happen right around where we got kickoff. So it felt colder than it was because it was so gloomy outside, and then turned into like oh, it's normal and sunny and beautiful outside
Yeah, it
in a
was
very short amount
super
of time.
weird. It was super weird.
Otherwise, what is known as the transition of seasons in Atlanta, where you get all 4 seasons on
I
the same day.
I don't live that far from you guys, and I'm gonna say that it feels like normal fall. Today feels like normal fall on the
Yes,
hot end.
yes,
Tomorrow's gonna be normal fall on the cold end.
yes.
And a week and a half ago, it was just the mornings are chilly. Like it was foggy here too, where I currently am domiciled. I get it. And as somebody
I
who's
I think we
an
should.
outdoor active commuter. But that being said, you asked about the third bye week of the year. It's
Oh yeah,
weird. It's weird to not
yeah.
have Saturday things to do. And the fact is, we are about to get this again the next 2 weekends because we have two weekday games to close out the year as well. So
I know.
quite a strange, quite
We may never
strange
play on a sat.
schedule for
We
this.
may never
Yeah.
play on a Saturday until next fall.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
that is
dude,
technically true.
and now that we can say this, we are going bowling, but
Yes, we are.
who's to say that won't be a Tuesday on like the 23rd of this I don't even know if I think the
Yeah, who
23rd is a
knows? Who
Tuesday.
knows?
Yeah,
It's a
If
but
you
no,
had
23rd is
pulled
a Monday. 23rd is a Monday.
If you had pulled the date for the Independence Bowl out of thin air, I would have been extremely impressed because I can't get the idea of Independence Bowl purgatory. I know it's not like an ACC bowl tie-in anymore, but I just can't get the idea of being shunted to Shreveport out of my head, just cosmically.
That is on the
Yeah,
28th this
well,
year.
the good news is we won't, so that is good.
There's always the threat of it. Shreveport is always close by, whether you like it or not. Let's talk a little bit about some news items that came up during the bye week. Zeke Biggers has been invited to the East West Shrine Bowl, so congrats to him for the Sports Center lead-in to the game on Thursday versus NC State. Hell of a block party has been moved to Tech Green. That's also where Sports Center is, so it all kind of fits together in lockstep. And the centerpiece of Tech's success in that game is going to be whether or not Haynes King is available and also 100%. There's nothing on that end coming out of the. It's not really the edge anymore because it doesn't really exist. We're going to have to come up with a name for that.
The,
But there's no news on that coming out of the coaching staff. But I would imagine he will be available, especially if he played the entirety of last week without being able to move at the waist. So, gentlemen, heading into NC State, Jack, I want to talk to you first. How are you feeling? What are your thoughts heading into this game?
Well, initially, you can say news coming out of Wardlaw because they're in the Wardlaw building now. Now that Edge is currently a pile of dirt.
A
Uh,
hole in the ground?
it's a hole in the ground. I think they've started laying some cement in there. I know they've been working on the foundation. They've got something going on. Anyways, um, I am optimistic for sure. I will say that much. Haynes King is a freaking bulldog, and in the generic sense, not 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 not.
Let's make
Eyebrows.
sure we check
I
our
said
choice of
generic sense. I said in the
words.
generic sense, not in the other sense. Yeah, I mean, he should be able to play. And Haynes and Jamal Haynes, and hopefully will remain fully healthy. Too. I mean, these guys just had these weird injuries that they kind of just have to play through. There's not really a way where football is going to hurt it anymore, so to say. Um, that's the main thing. I'm very proud of what we saw defensively from Miami because that to me backed up enough that the Virginia Tech performance wasn't fluky and that was actually a sign of continuous progress and getting better throughout the year. Um, and North Carolina State, they lost their quarterback this year. It's the things are not going in the right direction. I know we thought beginning of the season they were ranked 23rd. We're like, oh no, this is going to be one of those. Gotta somehow find a way to win. Now it's we're 9.5 point favorites. We really should win this game. Uh, and
Who even knows with this team too? They've been all over the map the last few weeks,
right,
highs and lows.
are you talking about us or North Carolina State?
No, I mean North Carolina State. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
there's the whole is the quality of opponent selection that they've played all that decent. I'll defer to our third co-host on that, given his rooting interest. But yeah, I don't know. High highs and seemingly frustrating lows. That seemed to be the theme for NC State this year.
I'm looking at their who they play, like just the totals. Like it started Western Carolina, it's fine. Allowed 51 to Tennessee, allowed 20 to Louisiana Tech, allowed 59 to Clemson. They beat Northern Illinois only by 7. Allowed 34 to Wake, 24 to Syracuse. Barely beat Cal. One of those games that Cal flip a coin they should have won or probably should have won. Allowed 28 to Stanford and allowed 29 to Duke. So all these point totals are point totals that we usually win when we score this much too, in that 24, 28 plus kind of thing. Uh, so that gives me hope. That gives me hope that we should be able to score on them enough times to put them away. They only scored 19 last game too against Duke.
I'm not really saying anything groundbreaking here, but not having Grayson McCall for better part of the season has been it's probably been a real emotional letdown for the squad.
Yeah.
Like that is a very good quarterback that has suffered like a very serious bout of injuries, and it really sucks that they don't have him to play off of. That being said, I mean, I think to your point, the passing offense is still there, and maybe some of these rankings are buoyed by McCall's performance the first couple weeks. I mean, 46th in the nation in offensive success rate, especially, I mean, in terms of in the passing game, 47% offensive success rate. That's good enough for 24th in the nation. EPA per pass, 0.12. That's 37th in the nation right there. Um, on early downs, they've struggled a good bit. They're just under 0 EPA per play. So, but they're really making their hay on third and fourth down, right? 49% conversion rate on those. So, they have a long way to go, but they're kind of on those. It's 7 yards per third down, but they're able to put the ball in the air and convert those a lot. It's just they're not able to establish the run is obviously not necessarily something that I'll espouse a lot, but they're just not really able to run the ball. They really have to rely on passing. And then if on the flip side, talking about their defense too, I mean, it's okay defense through in the air, right? Number 48 in the nation, like struggling a lot against the run and giving up a lot of field position. Opponents are usually starting at at their own 33. So
Well, there you
um,
go.
yeah, and but they're good at getting off of the field, a 38% third down success rate allowed. So it's an interesting comparison. I think Tech, it's gonna be. not to boil it down to whether Haynes King is healthy or not, because I think the last game Tech was able to be two-dimensional with two different quarterbacks.
Right.
I think in this game they can afford to not have to. Okay, let me choose my words carefully here. I think they can get away with just running the ball really effectively in this game. I
Yeah.
think NC State has really struggled versus the run. Get a couple of like flip the field on a couple of possessions. Like that quarterback obviously is struggling a little bit. That offense is struggling a little bit, and see what you can do there. Um, and to see if you can start in plus territory more often than not, see what happens, right? Especially on early downs, Tech is a really good matchup for this versus this defense. Tech is plus 0.11 on early downs EPA per play, and NC State is allowing 0, right? Like
But I
it sets up really well if Tech can go vertical early in drives, or whether that's via pass or via run.
but that defensive success rate for NC State isn't number 12 in the like that seems like something that would scare me away if I was trying to go for a run heavy a run heavy set if I'm Georgia Tech. Would it not?
I
Not to just play
wonder
devil's advocate, but
Yeah, yeah.
I wonder if I messed up the ranking in that, because that, to your point, it seems like that sticks out a
No,
lot.
you're right.
I
Well, you're
maybe I
right.
need to dig in a little bit more.
You're right.
Um,
It was 12th, but they have the most yards allowed per rush of anyone in the top 50. So when people get the jump on them, they get the jump on them pretty like it's a yard and a half different compared to the other teams that are around
yeah,
them
that could
in this.
be an explosiveness thing, and it could also be a um, like when you, like you said, when you get a jump, when you are converting on third down, or when you are getting, like, when you are positive in EPA, because that's what the rate is, you are really, really positive. And maybe that's getting, like I said, getting those explosive plays on early downs. Maybe that's the key here. And really just uh I don't know, like an ambushing a pitcher in baseball, like that sort of mentality, getting
Right.
aggressive early in the count. Like I think that might be really successful here.
Other thing, their havoc rate is by far the worst. They're the worst in the top 70 of teams in terms of teams of the top 70 rushing success rate teams defensively. So not a lot of pressure. Which if Haynes King gets time, he can do whatever the hell he wants back there, which has been a big deal for us. Jake, I think we'll both agree that the fact that they give up a lot of good field position is a helpful thing for us because we have not done well enough in that department, especially against Miami, with how we gave up so many yards on not taking fair catches or letting balls bounce off kickoffs. So, um,
Hey, I
I
want to
feel
harp on that one more time. Like,
okay.
just tell your guys to kneel. You get free 25 yards as long as you kneel or fair catch it with, like, before the 25-yard line. You
Right.
don't have to
Yeah.
do anything else. It doesn't even have to be in the end zone. Just
No.
fair catch the kick. It is so easy. I understand you're fast. I understand you're good at returning the ball. I understand that I've never played football, but take the free 25 yards. I'm begging you. This keeps happening. It's so dumb. It's such an avoidable error. Just please take the fair catch. I am begging you. Okay, I'm done.
I feel like I saw that in a couple games this weekend. Just in terms of other teams running it out when they probably could have done that. But obviously that is extremely anecdotal. So maybe that coaches are talking. Who knows?
Who knows?
Hey, let's get more aggressive. Something
I
like
look
that.
at the
I don't even
quarterback.
think it's aggressive. I I think it's just dumb. Like, you get 25 yards for free. Just
It,
take it. Like, you
it,
are
if
most likely going to, like, most of the time you're going to get tackled
if
before.
you were gonna say, "Hey Jake, guess how Akshay is gonna respond to this comment," I would have put significant odds on it. I don't even think it's aggressive. It's just dumb. Because I mean, I don't disagree, but I that
We know our
This
man
is
too
just a
well.
moment.
we know our man. Yeah.
It's the moment from the second Knives Out movie where one of the co-stars is like, it's so dumb, it's brilliant. No, it's just dumb.
Yes,
It's
that's a
just
Daniel.
dumb.
That's that scene.
Okay,
Please
Yeah,
stop
Benoit.
doing it.
it's a very
Yeah.
good. Yes, exactly, Benoit. Of no, so I was looking at the passing rankings on Game on Paper, and their current quarterback, CJ Bailey, currently is 19th nationally in EPA per dropback, which is and like right behind Dylan Gabriel and ahead of Kyle McCord.
Okay,
Uh,
so maybe I need to walk back a couple of my comments about saying that quarterback is struggling.
that said, success rate not immaculate, yards per dropback, but the worst of the top 20. Um, and of course, just less playing time as well. It total EPA is a little bit different.
Wasn't
I
wasn't
would
McCord benched for a minute in there too, though?
I don't know. I don't watch Syracuse football outside of that one game we played
I'm
Syracuse football, but
I'm really relying on the basketball conference podcast right here for something in the back of my brain. I just heard something somewhere say something, which is
now,
Important
really
to note,
not
by the way.
useful. But
yeah,
yeah,
Important to note, by the way, Haynes King is sixth on
I was
this
about to say,
leaderboard
yeah,
in terms of EPA per
Haynes
dropback.
is ahead of Cam Ward in this, and has yeah. I mean, yeah, if we give us a
Now,
defense that
where
is
is that? Where is that little sad dog that I like to see low on these charts?
58th.
Come on. There it is. That's about where I
Mr.
expect it to
Beck is
be.
58th at in the same realm as guys who run the offense for Arizona State, West Virginia, Pitt. Oh, Pitt. That's not the same guy. Pitt. Miami of
Uh,
Ohio. Yeah,
Arizona State has me considering them lately, though. I must say, I
they've
must
been
say,
like in our same like in like the chart that's like defensive versus offensive EPA aggregation. They have been the
yeah.
one like most identical to us for the last few weeks now. I would love to play them just to see what it looks like and how what that game would play out as a potential bowl candidate. That would be I would love to play Arizona State.
Also at number 64, old friend Tucker Gleason. So that's fascinating. I think, gentlemen, we've previewed this game enough. This is a 7:30 kick on ESPN, the aforementioned lead out to the Midday Sports Center
Yep.
Thursday,
That's at 2 o'clock.
the
2 o'clock.
21st. So let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about men's basketball. A split decision week, an 81-62 win versus Texas Southern. And on Dennis Scott jersey retirement night, an absolute, how do I put this nicely?
Not good enough. It's a not good enough.
A not good enough 77-69 loss to Georgia in the years. This is the second clean old fashioned hate. Volleyball already did the clean old fashioned hate,
Yep, this was the
right, this
second.
year.
Yep, yep.
The second matchup. I mean, I don't know if there's anything to really write home about Texas Southern. I was following that one for a little bit. It took a while, if I remember correctly, for Tech to pull away and really establish themselves in that game. And then second game was just flat. Like I think it was close early, and then it just I think around the same time just fell flat right around what would be the third quarter in any other basketball game.
Yeah, the Texas Southern game. It took about five. It took 6 minutes for us to break away, and we finally did. Terry hit a three, and Powell hit a couple free throws, and we were there. The fun part about that game was about halfway through the first half, there was a little scuffle after a play was over, and the ref, in trying to explain to the crowd why they were reviewing, he said, and I quote, "The play is under review because I didn't like it," and that's why they were reviewing. Well, it ended up just being a dual technical, and that was it. But it was really funny to watch. Just
Honestly, mad respect.
it was
If
great. It
if
was great.
MLS refs were like that, I would have a lot more fun watching MLS games.
However, all right, for those that get that meme, yeah, Georgia game wise, it was, yeah. I mean, we're down, so we're down six. We were down six at the end of the first half, and then we were actually down eight when it was all said and done because they overturned a basket interference no call that awarded Georgia 2 extra points. So we were down six, no, eight, seven. So we were down more points than we were at to start the second half, and we never really got back. We got into it. We got within three or two on a couple back-to-back threes from Terry and from Lance Terry and Javian McCollum. Sorry, we took the lead. I'm wrong. We took the lead in the second half. On Wuchekwa and Ndongo were doing pretty well. Then there was a 14-0 run by UWG, and that killed us pretty badly. We kind of clawed back a little bit. Terry was doing pretty well at the end there, which Mike White, Georgia's coach, was complimentary of, but the turnovers were not were a problem too, of course, in a game like this. Um, ultimately, yeah, the firepower wasn't there. Offense was just not enough in the first half, I think is what was all said and done there. That was the main thing that Damon harped on. That's the main thing that Terry harped on in the post game presser. But we're scoring, which is not nothing. Like we still can score, but defensively there is still a ways to go, I think is the general consensus after losing to North Florida and losing this game.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like a great spot to be in right now.
Though it's not, we're not any elite. We're not elite by any sense of the imagination. I'm glad to see. I mean, we're glad to see Onwachekwa play some more. He's getting him actually like shooting proper, just getting into more jump shots will be good. Luke O'Brien came back for this Georgia game after not playing against Texas Southern. I think they can get better. Something like they are still offensively a problem to deal with. That is going to be the consistent part of Georgia Tech basketball this year is they will be offensively a problem when the guys are healthy. That's because Bai is hard to deal with underneath. Nate George can get creative, and they got better pieces I think around them than they did last year. But again, it does not matter if we cannot stop a team from scoring as well, as we've already seen twice.
They let a low major hang 100 on them. Like that's
right,
not
right,
a good spot to be in, you know?
No,
Okay. You know what? You know what's great? This is still technically a top 100 team in Ken Palm.
Hey.
In that they are literally number 100.
Oh my God, I just saw it. Wow.
Ugh.
I was too lazy to scroll, so I just Command F'd.
That's
That's
hilarious.
frustrating. Well, it's a top 11 battle in McCamish Pavilion next weekend when Cincinnati, who's Ken Palm's number 11, comes to town on Saturday. It's a 2 p.m. tip. Is that on ACC Network or ESPN or like something
Hold on, I
sicko
got
like
it
the
up.
CW?
No, it's on ACC Network Extra.
That's
Live
fantastic.
stream ESPN Plus as well.
Mhm.
According to ramblinrec.com. I've got it right in front of me. So
That seems right. That seems right.
Fascinating.
That is the return
Fascinating.
of our home and home that we did with them last year. I don't believe our game went that well with them last time. Oh, also
It did not.
Dennis Scott jersey retirement was against Georgia. That was a fun night. At least a fun part of the game. Kremens was there, of course. Mark Price came out, and a couple of the other Harpering was there, and a couple of the other people alive in the jersey retirement. They did not put Scott's jersey on the same row as the other retired jerseys. I just don't think there's space, so it was like on the side where the Final Four banners are. If that matters to anybody. His speech, they told him he had 2 minutes to talk, and that was with about 9 minutes left on the halftime clock, and he talked, I think, for 7 minutes because there was 2.5 minutes when he stopped talking on the halftime clock, and people had to rush their jump shots in during halftime warm-ups. But
I respect it.
I think
your
that's
flowers.
the right move. It's
You
the
know?
right move. Absolutely the right move there. So that was I'd never seen a jersey retirement in person, so that was cool to see.
Yeah,
I saw
it's a fun
Hosa's
moment.
jersey get retired at the United Center a year or two ago. That was the good feels.
You mean Atlanta Thrashers legend Marion Hossa? That's what he is to me. That's what he is to me. That's what he is to me.
Ugh. I
Yeah,
remember playing as
just
him in
one
like
up my
backyard
nostalgia
hockey.
for my beloved Chicago Blackhawks, Jack. Thank you.
Womp womp. Also in basketball news, and this will be a theme throughout the rest of the episode too. We had National Signing Day come up this past week. Four signings from for men's basketball, excuse me. Most notable of which for me are Cole Kerouac, who's a center from Cumming, who you may remember as a reclassified senior from I think it was 20 from last year
Yeah,
is
he was with the
signing
yeah.
this cycle with Tech. He spent the last year at overtime elite in the shed over in Atlantic Station. Jack, I think you did a little bit of pre-work on some of these guys. Any other names come up to mind?
No, this one I was mostly focusing on softball. But I just will note that Kerouac, this is Cole Kerouac completing his designation for assignment at AAA Overtime Elite, before coming up and getting his call up to the majors at Georgia Tech men's basketball.
He's finished his loan spell.
This is this is why I love this is even in the crazy weirdness that is NCAA sports right now with how payments are working, all that stuff like that. Tech basketball, if they do this right, will be extremely lucky to have OTE literally 2 blocks away from the Camish and use it as a AAA system,
Way
as a
more
farm
than two
system.
blocks away. Hold on.
It's very no, you're right. You're right.
It's
They're
a
it's
good.
it's one major segment. It's one whole neighborhood away. There's a whole home park in between. Um, and yeah, so I kind of hope this works. Like I'm really hopeful to see Kerouac. I just want to see him play, but then also like, okay, does this whole thing we've concocted for him actually work as a development plan, and should we use it for other guys? So that's what I'm mostly curious about here.
Important to
You
mention
know,
also that sorry, I have one more note on assigning class, but Jake, if you want to talk about the shed, I'm
no,
all ears.
no, no. It's just that the blocks in Home Park are so weird, and you've completely derailed my like thoughts on this. Because once you go
Oh my
north of
god.
14th Street, it's just a really long block instead of two blocks.
See, I wasn't
14th and
crazy. I
16th,
wasn't
I'm gonna
crazy.
decide.
it's a super block, and then
I
between
wasn't crazy.
Atlantic Drive between 14th and 10th, you got like four streets, but sometimes five, depending on which part of the town you're in.
That's right. That's
It's
right.
weird. And then in Turner, you just have one really wiggly path between all the buildings.
Yes.
It's bizarre. So technically, if you take the wiggly path and then you go down Holly or Francis, then it's one street and then 16th, and it's two really big blocks.
2 blocks away.
But
Two
but
blocks
it's like a
away.
mile. It makes
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
sense. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like I'm passionate about this issue, and I just got very distracted. So
That's what
thank you
makes
for
this
letting me
podcast
run
special.
the podcast into a ditch about Tim Home Park and his
Oh my
strange
god.
land development.
Oh my
Thank
You
you.
want to
god.
know? There is one guy
That
from a
felt good.
properly.
Good. I'm glad.
There's one guy on this list from a properly developed, like a properly centrally planned neighborhood. Brandon Stores, there was a guard from the Bronx. Um, you know what happened last time Tech had a
Nope.
point guard from the
Not
Bronx?
centrally planned. It wasn't centrally planned. That's the
Oh
whole thing
no.
about the Bronx. Why it's cool is because it wasn't centrally.
Oh,
Deep breaths.
we got him
Deep
again.
breaths.
We got him
Breathe
again.
in and out. Breathe in and out. Think only urbanist thoughts,
Oh
Jake.
my
There
god.
you
Oh
go.
my
This is great. This is great podcasting. I'm really gonna have to decide if I'm gonna cut some of
That's
this.
so
It's gonna be
funny.
great.
You are not going to
It's
cut this. This is my lived experience,
Oh
Akshay.
my god.
You can't
Anyways,
deny me this.
Brandon
women's
committed.
basketball, lived experience. Bring it back in. Women's
Uh,
basketball, lived experience of 2 wins, an 88-53 win versus West Georgia, and a 83-67 win in clean old fashioned. Hey, Jake, do you remember a couple of years ago when Tech basketball scored 80 points for the first time in what felt like probably a decade? And we were like, this is awesome. They have offensive firepower in like normal people games now. This is great.
The great thing about like this whole like high variance fun early part of the season is they are rocketing up the Massey ratings. We don't have Ken Pom for the women, but they are up 10 spots in the last what day? 2 days, and that's because
nice.
they beat somebody with a pulse. And UGA, they're 3-2, they're 81 in the Massey. Is it your older brother's UGA Lady Bulldogs basketball team? Maybe not. Maybe not yet. But shoot, going into two monster games in Hawaii, South Dakota State quietly number 44 in the Massey.
Ooh,
Again, it's early. There's a lot of variance. Before getting Oregon, top 25 team by a lot of good ratings. I mean, this is how you want to be playing. Averaging,
yes.
you
Yes.
know, doing some quick math in my head is slightly more than 80 points per game. Averaging that, if you'd have told me that in year one of Nell Ball, I would have been like, man,
Offensive
40 points
revolution,
feels
baby.
awesome. Like
Yeah.
the quest for
We
40 is over at halftime. Like this
we
is
scored.
wild.
Yeah, we scored eight. Yeah, this is what's great. We scored 85 and 88 against Winthrop and West Georgia, respectively, which like fine. You should.
You have to.
There's a large that you could score
Should
75 and
generally
still.
do
Those
that, yes.
those
You could.
those are bottom 30 teams in the sport right
No,
there.
yeah,
Like
you could score.
just being
Yeah,
frank.
they could have scored 75 and still beat them by 40, regardless of the score. But then they put 83 up against Georgia. Like continuing
They pulled
and
away. I mean, this is something that I wanted to see from this team, and this is like the point of frustration that I generally have with the men too, is like when you have the opportunity to like take the lead and pull away, especially in like end of third quarter, early fourth quarter section of the game, like that is not to simplify the sport into that's where the money is made and you need to
right.
win that moment, but like this is something that this team did in that moment in that game.
Right.
And
Yep.
obviously they won by 16.
Yeah,
To
they
characterize the what you're saying, Jake, about the rankings, we do have Torvik rankings for the women now, which is
Yeah.
new this year, which is great. Tech
Thank you,
is
Bart.
39th, 30th in adjusted offensive efficiency, and 50th in adjusted defensive efficiency. So right around, I mean, right above them
that's
is
great.
Auburn, and right above Auburn is Louisville. Oregon is 28th. And then if I look for South Dakota State, they're 54th.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
very good competition coming up.
Yeah,
it's early enough in the year that all these ratings and rankings are going to have super high volatility. So just the fact that like they're directionally correct feels like the most important takeaway here, or directionally agree. Like
yeah.
if one of them was like, oh, they're in the hundreds, maybe it's like, okay, maybe we rethink this. But no, SDSU is one of the better mid majors out there, and has been. So
We shot 66% in the fourth quarter against Georgia.
that's good.
That'll
Sources
do
say
it.
that's good.
We
That will do it.
won the turnover battle by 8, 6-14. And no one had more than 2 turnovers on the team, which is incredible. Tony had only 1, which is good for her. Chit Chat had 2. Chit Chat was the only one with 2, which is fine. Freshman.
Are you
She's also
guys are you guys looking at Torvik still?
I
no.
am.
Can you take a nice guess what the only category in which Georgia Tech has a red shading indicating below 50th percentile is?
Oh
Just
my,
take a guess.
oh, I've seen it, and it makes me so mad.
I couldn't tell you because I'm not looking at it. I don't even know what Torvik is.
Make your free
We were 12 of
throws.
14 in this game.
Free throw rate.
12 of 14 in this game against a real team. There you go.
But okay, a real team doesn't matter though. The line is in the same spot. It's not like blocks. The
No,
blocks are
I know
not
what you mean.
long.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Just
Progress,
they have been
progress, progress.
terrible. The free throw rate has been terrible. I mean, I guess this isn't actually like free throws made versus free throws
Yeah, it's
attempted
not a
in this case.
percentage. No,
Yeah,
no.
this is different, and I actually can't. It's not telling me on Hover how it's actually calculated.
You can
So
tell
that
it's
is
not real rate though, because the highest one is 57.3, and
All,
that's not a high percent.
I also am gonna just assume, based on the fact we played Winthrop, Georgia State, and West Georgia, we haven't been shooting many free throws because we just because how the defenses have been. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
also think that's a thing. There's a couple
yeah,
notes in this
volume
game.
adjustment. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I think
agree.
there's a couple things in this game. One, Zoe Smith, who's played for Georgia the last 4 years. We just took her for her grad year, and she put up 8 points and shot 6 of 8 from the free throw line for us. Basically, we got her to be a more physical presence for us, and then we bodied them against. We bodied Georgia. Like that was so good. Inez Noguera only played 6 minutes, but historically against physical teams like Georgia, she hasn't been as successful. But now we have ways to back that up and players who can come in and fill that spot well, which right now is resulting in Caleb Blackshear coming off the bench because we're having Ari Termis play center, and that means we had our main rebounder on the bench now from last year, and she comes in and fills in a great defensive spot for us, which is awesome. And she shot 4-6 as well. Danny Carnegie though, we have a freshman who's really good. Danny Carnegie, she scored 20 points in this game in 30 minutes flat, 7 of 18 shooting, 4 of 10 from 3. She's co-ACC freshman of the week. Granted, I know opponent is one thing, but she was lighting it up against the other Georgia schools, and then did it again here, which is really really promising. And Kara put up 25, which is awesome. Both they're not Kara's career high, but close to it. Uh, so something's worked. I do think something is on track to be working in Hawaii. Um, I don't know if it'll totally perfectly work, but for now we have 2 playable freshmen in Chit Chat Wright and Danny Carnegie, which is very nice compliment to and also Russ Augustinate, I don't believe played in this game at all, which is very interesting. But okay,
Uh,
Jack, I know you got a thing.
yeah, I was gonna say, I think kind of just on that Hawaii note, looking into it, expected line 2.9 in Tech's favor against South Dakota State and
Okay.
plus 2.3 versus Oregon. That tells me that those games are going to be decided in the margin. Sure, free throw rate,
Mm.
but Like, how does a Danny Carnegie translate to a, okay, you are now 6 hours off body clock time. Good
Right,
luck.
right,
You're
right.
playing a
Yep.
pretty good mid-major team with some experience. Good luck. I think those are definitely ones to not, I don't want to say go other way. Sounds lame and reductive, but
I
like
get you
it.
mean.
These are going to be real interesting neutral site quality opponents that I think will tell us a lot about this team. Not that UGA is not a quality opponent because they're pretty good, but right now that's only looking like a Q3 win. So,
Right. In general, and also just temperament wise, like they put their foot down in the fourth quarter. I mentioned they shot
yep.
66%. They outscored Georgia by 11 in that fourth quarter and had an 11-0 run in the third quarter to really push the gap in this game. Um,
Hmm.
so they are they're doing the stuff you want to see teams do at this point, which was, I mean, we beat Georgia 2 years in a row now, which was great. Um,
Yep.
so getting through this will be good. We have here's he at right now the point of demarc the basically where the point where think if we're gonna be better or not this year is we play Mississippi State on December 4th. That's who we lost to finish the year last year in the brand new WBIT when we were just like it did not look like we tried in that game, to be honest. I know they did, but it was I think everyone would say the effort was just not all the way there in that game. I want to see us win this game. Maybe not convincingly, but just make it to where Mississippi State is having a hard time doing things in that game, and that's going to
Yeah.
be a clear sign that okay, the recruits are making a huge difference here, and that year three of this core is actually going to net something different than what they expected, which is a better team. Um, so I mean, Hawaii is going to be weird. I don't know if it'll be weird or not, but yeah, South Dakota State, Oregon, then FAMU at home, but then yeah, that Mississippi State game that's the one I'm keying in on. Is this team better? Will they stay better
Yeah.
before it begins the rest of the schedule?
And Tech has not had a game score below 93 yet. So this is a
Great.
team that's functioning very, very well. That let's see that continue.
A couple of news items coming down the pipe as well. We talked about National Signing Day for the men just a bit ago. For the women, we have a center signing Michaela Taylor from Atlanta, a local signing. So you like to see that. Another news item: alumna Danielle Donahue is inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame in the class of 2025. A four-year letter winner from 96 to 2000, was a grad assistant under Pat Summitt at Tennessee, and also was a was a executive vice president at the Atlanta Dream. Currently the executive director of the Women's Basketball Coaches Association. So congrats to her. And like we said, next time we will check in on women's basketball will be after they have done the double in Hawaii in the North Shore Showcase versus South Dakota State. And Oregon will be back to talk about volleyball, cross country, and swim and dive right after this short break. Stay tuned.
Yeah, as always, this podcast is brought to you by section103.com. Gents, interactive this week. Something big is back. Do you know what it is?
Oh, what did they post? I don't. Oh no.
Something big is back.
Da 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 da. Da 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 da. It's the
Oh,
Felice
Akshay
Bobby
knows.
Dodd. It's the
Yes.
Felice Bobby Dodd sweaters. They are back, baby. They are back.
Yes, in blue and gold, the sweatshirts, long sleeve t-shirts, and 3XL. So there's more options, better than ever for the tech fan and also Christmas sweater enthusiast in your life. Grab a Feliz Bobby Dodd sweatshirt and or long sleeve shirt while they last. That's exciting, and you can join them section103.com. And remember, code FTRS, 10% off. Tell them we sent you. We appreciate it. And free shipping on orders over $80 every day. Again, that's section103.com by tech grads, for tech grads, and fans alike, and students and everywhere in between. So go check them out. And yeah, back to the show.
Let's head over to O'Keefe Gym. Let's talk about the number 15 Georgia Tech volleyball team. A nice, neat, and clean 3-0 sweep versus Cuse, and then a nice, neat, and clean 3-0 sweep of Boston College to cap off senior day. Bianca Bertolino set the modern era scoring ace record, or modern scoring era ace record, excuse me, at 165, overtaking Julia Bergman's record. And we had a weird little jersey snafu in this game as well. Jack, you were on site. What
Mhm.
happened there?
Yeah, so Tech was coming out wearing a white uniform. They had stars and stripes stuff on their arms and whatnot, and then said USA on the back. Thing is, Boston College also showed up wearing white, and I think they only brought one set. Probably only brought their white uniform because they were playing two road games against us and Clemson, as you do when for ACC travel partner stuff. And so I was wondering, like, are they going to have to change? Are we going to have to change because we're the home team here in this case? It turns out there's no rule in the volleyball rulebook right now that says you have to change uniforms if both teams are wearing the same color. It's just recommended the home team change, but you don't have to. And considering that we were wearing a special Veterans Day uniform, that there was no way they were changing. So this was a rare uh white on white game where just both teams are wearing the same color. But in volleyball where you're on only one side of the net, it doesn't really make it a problem because you know who is who pretty much the whole time. So that was just interesting to watch. But anyways, that was we beat them pretty soundly nonetheless though. So the volleyball itself was not as much of a snafu as that was.
I think the way that we described these two games is the kind looked more like themselves. Obviously, Cuse and Boston College are lower grade opponents than what they're going to be facing the next couple of weeks. But these were, like I said, these were just so fresh, so clean kind of wins. So I think good to see heading into this 4 game set to end the regular season. That is grueling to say the least.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
I will say USI rates BC and Syracuse as the two worst teams in the ACC. RPI has Syracuse as the worst and Boston College as the sixth worst. These are not vaunted opponents. You need to summarily dispatch them. Like
Yep.
they did
And they did.
exactly what they needed to do.
Yep. Those not none of those sets were in contention at all. If
Yeah.
anything, I was happy to see. I mean, was in a. We mentioned this podcast before, but like their program is under a serious rebuild. So for what it was good to see them have a full squad there. It traveled to Atlanta this time. Their coach is doing a good job getting that program back up off the ground. So even if we did beat them like we needed to, it's good to see the floor of the ACC rising with them as well in terms of just general talent. And they had some good players.
Yeah.
They had some good players.
They're at, I believe, 199. I mean, Virginia Tech's not too much different. They're 197. The floor of the conference is certainly done no favors by the fact that there are 10 or not 10. I was about to say 10 top 10 teams. There are 10 top 4 top 10 RPI teams in the conference and 3 in the USI. So,
Yeah.
certainly a tough place to be doing a rebuilding effort there. So,
Yep. So talking a little bit about next week and rankings, Tech heads to Florida to play travel partners FSU and Miami. That's number 23 and number 29 by USI, FSU, and Miami. And then right after that, they're staring down the barrel of hosting Pitt, or excuse me, those are coaches poll, 23 and receiving votes, Miami. FSU's number 23. They are staring down the barrel of also facing Pitt and Stanford at home to end the year. So that is
Woo.
fun. And I think all in all, the way that we've talked about this team has been like it's been a mixture of that like just like that step back like they've taken a step back from previous years and previous performances that we've seen. But also if you look at their ranking, they're 15th in the country. So there's some disconnect or some sort of inertia that's keeping them so far up, or maybe we're just a little bit tepid on the rise of SMU and then the addition of Stanford and Cal to the top end, or at least the addition of Stanford to the top end
Right.
of
I
the
hear what you mean.
conference as well.
I think we
And I
just have.
think Jake, you were saying like this just it's like the coaches poll is just super slow to react, right?
yeah. Well, and that's the thing too is like I would say that like up until right around now, I don't have tons of confidence in my own numbers. It's weird in that you're trying to like goal seek towards a conference or conference postseason, conference champion postseason, at large bid type of destination. The coaches poll inertia is something that spans seasons in a way that like right around now, I would say, I'm fairly confident in how these shake out. Granted, super conferences are bigger, uneven schedules, yada yada yada. But I don't know what it is. It's something that like it seems to last year to year. It seemed to apply to Georgia Tech when we were still on the come up, and maybe it benefits us a little now. But at the end of the day, they're not choosing regional seeds based on the coaches poll. It's smoke and mirrors, right? They're choosing it based on your resume and based on who you beat and how you were on the road and your RPI and your strength of schedule and all those I guess those nitty gritty factors to borrow a phrase from the NCAA itself
Hmm.
and that's somewhere where Georgia Tech pencils out 23rd. I'm at 21st. That's a good two seed. Georgia Tech looks like a good two seed. They've looked like a good two seed most of the year, and I think part of the reason that you, me, or the three of us, you might say, has been a little bit like, is like we've been a good two seed, mid to good two seed for 3 years in a row, and this is the same deal, right?
Yeah,
So
nothing about this team outside of a couple different players feels any different than what we were doing last year. Like we are about in that same breath nationally.
yep,
We're probably gonna go play Florida at their building again. If I had like, who knows how that pans out?
Florida 19th in Evolve rankings, by the way, Tech 20th. So it's
Yeah,
very much in play.
like we're the same team again. We beat them this year in McCamish, which was great early in the season. But ultimately it
yeah,
does feel like a lot of the same team. Now, here's the part that could get us a step and make us a better team later is that we have been slow to bring Larissa Mendez back into the fold as she's come
yep,
back from injury. We thankfully that has happened during a stretch of the calendar where we could afford to do that. And Logan Wiley has filled in
yep,
amazingly, meaning we can let Larissa take her time to come back. Eloise Suarez is in a soft cast right now, so she's certainly healing up. She could play in the tournament when it comes to it. That said, Ashley Goolsby has gotten better as well as the backup setter when we need her to be there. Um, so they're figuring out stuff. I lose. I losing one of these games would not surprise me honestly this weekend in Florida because that's just generally what has happened with this team is they don't get both of these games in Florida for one reason or another. If we get both of these, that gives me much more hope. Not so that we're going to beat
yeah.
Stanford or Pitt, but that gives me like tournament like okay, I can see what kind of team we can beat because we have not played a seriously good tournament level team in a while now at this point. Um,
Yeah.
so that's going to be a interesting test for in both these games to see
I
where we get to.
I mean, and that's like, yeah, we played Stanford, but like that was a match that was never
Oh, I forgot about that.
really
Yeah.
all
Oh, yeah.
that
That.
never
Yeah.
really all that competitive. You kind of throw the baby
Yeah.
out with the bathwater. But like if you look at Tech's losses, it's a sweep at the hands of Stanford, a sweep at the hands of Louisville, a sweep at the hands of Pitt, a sweep at the hands of SMU, all of which pencil out as really good teams. I don't know why my numbers have Louisville as not a top 10 team. That's insane. I
Yeah.
don't
That's not
know. I
right.
need to look into that because they are a top 10 team by every other
Yes.
metric.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
go figure there. And then the other loss was a five setter in the first game of the year against UCLA to a good, but not like maybe quite as top tier as those others. But they're certainly not bad. I mean, they're 12 and
Right.
13 overall this year, but like it's a good team and a good program and a hard league. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. They're getting their Big Ten adjustment season
yep,
figured out here and
yep,
whatnot. We were the first game where they weren't where they didn't have travel lag and class lag embedded into their body clocks quite yet. So it was a very different kind of UCLA team than what they are now. Uh,
well, yeah,
And you
yeah,
say
this
that, and UCLA is still, well, to be fair, they are 12 and 13, which is not something that I expected to see, but it is
right,
also
yeah,
the Big Ten,
okay.
and they're
yeah,
number
Let, let,
30 in the
let
nation in
me let
Evolve
me riddle you
rankings.
this. They did not play a single out of conference game at home. They played at Tech. They played Coastal in our building. They played at Tennessee, another
oh
good team,
yeah,
and then a game in Tennessee. They played at TCU and two minute teams in TCU's buildings, and then they played at UC Davis and at Cal. I don't know if their building was under construction or renovation
Yeah, I
or
don't know what
something, but like
yeah, it doesn't help. That doesn't help.
this is not a normal UCLA year.
No.
I think the point stands in that like Tech's either handled business maybe a little closer than you might like. See the Clemson game or the first Clemson game or at Duke, but like they found ways to win even if they're not pretty. But you know it we they beat UNC, which is just a pretty good 3-2 seed type team, and that's what Florida State and Miami are going to be. And you get them in their own building, so you know if there's two teams to get right about now, it pencils in to be a team that looks a lot like one you'd play in the first round of the tournament, and those are teams that look a lot like ones you might play in the first round of the tournament. Is that a fair assessment there?
Yeah, probably. It's just I think we all are in agreement, and maybe we have a tendency to talk in circles about it, that it's just very
Us
annoying
talk in circles about women's volleyball?
Oh
in
my
this
Never.
economy.
We've never done
It's just
that.
it is just very annoying that they're in that. And we've made this comparison before. It's very annoying that they're a top 20 team and not a top 10 team, right? There's so much work and so much foundation that needs to be built in order to make that leap. And I think it's compounded by the fact that SMU came out of nowhere and has put together the season that they have and
yeah.
effectively taken one of Tech's usual slots in the
They
ACC.
were they were good last year though, and they played a soft schedule, and so the rankings dinged them a bunch for it. And once you get to the tournament, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
I said it almost all along that I thought this was the sport that they'd make the biggest splash in, and so far they've
They've done
proven
it.
me right. I
The
not you know
yeah,
Bit
I'm
more
looking
of
at
a bit more of a tsunami than a splash, to be fair.
yeah.
good good. It makes
And
it makes their addition to the conference look good. I
well, and to your point of like the tiering that Evolve's most recent ratings as of yesterday, so November 17 after the games were done, the previous national champions Texas are at the 10 spot right now.
yep.
And which is crazy to think. I mean, we're right next to Florida, right next to Florida State as well. Uh, and like we are definitely in that like right now, like Pitt, Nebraska, they're a tier. Creighton, Louisville, Wisconsin, Stanford, they're a tier, and then Penn
Uh-huh.
State down to Texas. I don't know if I'd put Kansas in there like Evolve does. But like we're in that grander fourth tier right now, which you can kind of go here and there. Uh, we beat Penn State last year. We could have. I think we still could beat SMU right now if we actually played them. Um, so it's yeah, it's the same thing every year, I guess. As when we keep saying it. I just hate. Pitt's gonna beat everybody. It doesn't matter. Pitt's gonna win
It has
25 to
a
3 in a set.
65% chance to win the ACC championship per Evolve's numbers. So
Also, congrats on the 10 versus 20. You've just entered the psyche of like every mid-tier SEC program's brain, and that's what makes them go crazy. So this is just our burden to bear. We are volleyball stans, and that's okay.
Woohoo!
frustrating. Like we said, FSU, Miami, Pitt, and Stanford to end the year over the next 2 weekends. And National Signing Day updates for volleyball to take us out. Lamine Mambu, an outside hitter from Chantilly, Virginia, and Ada Awagu, a middle blocker from San Antonio, Texas, are both committed and signed to the Jackets for 2025, which 2025 still feels like a fake year. I'm never going to really internalize that it's a real year that's coming in just like 6 short weeks, but I digress. Why don't we talk about swim and dive before I have an existential crisis? That is the number 19 men's swim and dive team at Georgia Tech. The GT invite is this week versus, and here are all the men's rankings: number 15 Auburn, number 24 FSU, and number 17 Michigan. And then on the women's side, that are number 11 Michigan and number 18 Auburn. Jake, what can we expect preview wise from this meet?
Yeah, I think there are fewer people who have seen this meet more up and close and personal than I have. I timed it many a time, and I think the biggest thing that you want to look for is not necessarily the number rankings, the number of points scored, it's really going to translate to times. At the midseason, you got a little bit of a taper coming into it. What you want to see is not necessarily getting every A cut. It probably won't be any tech A cuts, are pretty low chance. You want to be in the region of getting maybe some B cuts, maybe a relay consolation, or not consolation, consideration cut or two. Like it's all about these how you say um, softer things that don't translate super well to a flashy um, like a flashy write-up or things like that. Not to say that winning the Georgia Tech invite doesn't matter or doesn't mean that much, but going, I don't even know if there's a trophy, like it's not necessarily something that is the goal in order to be won, but I am very interested to see how this translates in, and not even necessarily, time-wise for the GT invite, but how it translates time-wise to what the rest of the country is doing, because this is really the first and only major data point between now and the run-up to conference season. And, I was pretty high in the first edition of the cap rankings of the year on this team on the women, but there weren't a lot of results in yet. A lot of these results are odds and ends, dual meets, tri meets, quad meets, things like that, where there's not necessarily the get in, taper, fast suit up type stuff. And USA Swimming changed their times formatting again, so I've not been able to run the cap since because I've been very, very busy. But yeah, it's something that's on my radar for Thanksgiving because frankly, like this is the data point right here. How tech starts to stack up against not just the invite, but the rest of the country. That'll give us a better sense for maybe some of that ACC and NCAA prognostication to come later in the year. Is that a fair take?
Sense. Makes sense to me. Speaking of the rest of the country, National Signing Day class for swim and dive is also from across the country and across multiple countries, honestly. Annabelle Smith, a breaststroker from Bedford, New York. Tobin Ewell, a breaststroker from Littleton, Colorado. Tuncer Berk Ertuk, a fly and distance freer from Ankara, Turkey. Yuval Segal, a backstroke sprint freer from Ziona, excuse me, Israel, and then Maria Webb, a fly IM and distance freer from Gaithersburg, Maryland. 5 signees for the 2025 Georgia Tech swim and dive program there. Let's talk about National Signing Day for a bunch of our other sports, specifically the stickball sports. Jack, what do you have for me from softball?
I was doing a quick check on who all these people are. We got some Georgians and some non-Georgians, and Sydney Watts came up as a notable name here. She's from Youngstown, Ohio. She was Ohio's National Gatorade Player of the Year as a two-way player. And I know our least favorite player to play against every year was one of those. I forgot her name from Clemson. What was her name again?
Valerie Cagle, the
Yeah,
program.
yeah. So
Valchise.
The program.
I'm not saying this is Valerie Cagle, just our version, but at the very least, we got someone who had a sub like around a .05 ERA over 100 plus innings and hit 13 homers and hit nearly 500 in high school ball and was the 15th highest recruit in the country. So that's great to see that we're getting out of state really good talent, because I know we were last year's recruiting class was a lot of get the in-state players who are really, really good. And then we'll see that team this year play. And then next year, hopefully we can compound that with some more players. The other names, Paige Carroll from Cumming, Julia Marici from Marietta, Gracie King, a catcher from Boone, Iowa, Landry Pick from Rysel, Texas, and Abigail McKinnis from Buford, Georgia. Mixed pitchers, catchers, infielders, outfielders, all that kind of good stuff. So hopefully the other players I couldn't get much on, that'll be a later down the road kind of thing. But nonetheless, landing a big splashy recruit like Sydney is fantastic for us, because that's more of what we've been seeing as softball's recruiting has perked our ears and eyes more than beforehand.
Honestly,
Hey,
the thing
gentlemen.
that this made me think of the most, for just a brief note on the softball, is, and baseball, this is relevant too. We got to wait a full year for them to come in, but
Right.
I'm very eager now to just like go and do a recap on the incoming freshmen for both of these teams, because we
Yes.
were really high on both recruiting classes, and we'll talk
We
about
were.
baseball in just a sec, but like we were very high on these classes, and that probably bodes well for this coming spring, even if, Sydney and Watts and the rest of the gang are not going to be here till what, 2026? Oh, 2026.
I know
That's
it's
been a
gonna
number.
it's gonna be a while. So yeah, there's
Yikes.
I won't even we'll deal with the new players down the road. That's not announced
Yeah,
yet.
exactly.
Two things on softball before we go to baseball. Number one, I just looked at the Clemson roster and guess who's not on it for like the first time in the entire history of the program.
I'm gonna guess Valerie Cagle, given
She
that.
is not on the roster.
Yes.
She is gone. She's
Woohoo.
finally graduated.
We will
That
we'll just
I
have
feel a
someone else.
knot, like a knot has just untied in my
Oh boy.
brain.
Well,
I feel so much more calm now.
the
It's great.
the weird thing about last year is she only went like 8-7 with a full run higher in the ERA. Don't ask me why I know this off the top of my head, but it was not nearly the program levels of the past. But it's something that is certainly worth keeping an eye on because the schedule, the pairings are, if not like publicly announced, then they are certainly coming. And to kind of consider it, not to tip my hand, but I know they're coming, and
Yeah.
to get that off of the schedule, maybe, or off of the
Oh, we
list that
didn't
we
mention
have to
the
deal
schedule
with.
came out.
Hmm, what's up?
The,
The conference schedule
the
came out for
schedule
softball.
is out. I
Yeah.
mean, the ACC
Yeah.
schedule is out,
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned that on the
not the
pod yet.
dates. Are the dates
Yeah,
out
we don't know the
too?
dates. Like I don't know how it all
Oh no, we
plays
do. We
out,
do. We
but
do.
oh, we do? Whoa,
Yes.
okay.
Here we go. Let me find this for us here. Um,
This is great
While you're
podcast.
looking for that, and
I
while
got
you
it. I
prep
got
for
it. I got
that,
it. I already got it. I already got it. First weekend of
okay,
March. We host Stanford. First full weekend of March. We host
that's
North Carolina State.
unbelievable.
And then
That's like the first year the Buzz Classic was back, and they played Alabama and Washington in the same weekend and got shelled by
Ah,
Washington.
they got a
oh,
month to settle in this year. Wait, Don't
and
don't
then
worry about the Stanford.
a second and third week of March we go to Cal, and then we go to Pitt. Then we got a week off. Beginning of April we host Syracuse, and then we go to North Carolina, and then to Florida State, and then we host the Clemson Tigers the final weekend of April before ACC's 2 weeks later.
Yeah, I just hope that Tech softens up Florida State for Louisville senior weekend. Sadly, I cannot go to the Clemson Tech series. I will be in Louisville for that. But no, that's a balanced slate. To be quite honest, there's good teams on it. There's winnable series on it. It's going to be
Yeah.
tough, but you got to win a couple maybe you don't expect. But that is a tournament resume building schedule right there.
Yes, absolutely. I guess we haven't seen like what preseason, no, not preseason, but initial season like tournament thing they get invited to or something like that.
I
So
don't think they're going back to Clearwater this
yeah,
year.
I don't know if they are or not, but that was the whole thing last year.
That was not a fun
I was gonna
time.
say maybe for the
Well,
best,
we
but
almost
we'll
won one
see.
of those games and then probably didn't even get
Oh,
close
wait,
in the
hold
rest of
on.
them. But anyways,
Wait. Hold on. Before we move on to this, I'm gonna make sure that they're not on the Clearwater schedule because I thought I saw the interlocking GT on it. They are not
Hey,
officially on the
guys,
Clearwater schedule.
can
yes,
you do me a favor?
Uh-oh.
Um, can you go to the 2024-2025 softball roster real quick?
I was just there. I wonder if you're gonna mention what I have thought about.
Jack, are you and I thinking the same thing? Look into my eyes. Are we thinking the same thing? This
Uh,
podcast is a visual medium.
is it row two? You're talking about row two?
Yeah, I'm talking about row two.
Yeah, how Sydney Watts is listed on the roster.
Yeah, I didn't notice any of the other signees on that, and
Nope.
that screamed off the page at me.
Do you know what also screams off the page? She has listed stats for Georgia
And a
Tech on there.
number.
Yeah. She has
Got a
that,
number?
which
Yeah.
is that was something. Also, that the other person on here, Elena Gottlieb, got her from Oregon State. So we have we got a transfer for an outfield spot. I don't know how much she's
She's
gonna
got
stay in.
Michaela Caulfield's stats loaded in.
Yeah.
So I think this is just a bug on the website, but it would
I'll
be I
I'll
am
note. Yeah,
incredibly curious about this.
I'll note the person that is in charge of the specific page is brand spanking new on Tech's athletic staff right now. So I would not actually trust any of this right now because it's still very much under construction.
No.
Yeah.
Well,
Boo.
to be fair, none of the to your point, none of the other signees are on this page. So
that was my big like, perhaps.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Also, Grace Connolly is still on here. I don't think she's playing for us this. Maybe. Oh no, she is. Sorry, I was thinking of someone else that graduated. So never mind. Never mind. Yeah.
fascinating, fascinating. The other thing that I was thinking of, and Jack, you brought this up a little bit ago, talking about um, girls are coming in from in-state to come play for Tech, especially Abigail McKennis that's coming in from Buford, whose program we were looking into just before we recorded, because I think they're the top ranked program in the nation based on max preps.
Mm,
Um, it is increasingly good, or I think that the success that Coach Morales is having with in-state talent, um, and like bringing up the level, the talent base
hmm
of Tech over the last 6 years, especially powered by in-state talent and some of these key like blue chip kind of out-of-state pieces, I think is really good, especially considering where Tech's in-state recruiting was right
Right.
before she got there.
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
This is yeah.
And
This is how this team will get good and stay good.
I mean, like you don't have to build the whole ship out of one or the others, but if you got talent in the backyard, go get it. And with how the world is going with scholarships and things like that, if you're recruiting in state, you're playing smart with Zell and Miller and the gang, Hope, all that good stuff. Do I understand exactly which one of those is which? No, I still don't. But I know that they're helpful. So, that's
Wait, you mean who is Zell and who is Miller? The guy
no, I
named
know
Zell
who
Miller?
Zell and Miller are. I
Oh,
just don't know which one's the big one and which one's
You
the other
don't know
one.
that Zell and Miller are the
Yeah,
same
they're the same
person,
guy.
Zell
They're the
Miller.
same guy. I'm the history man here. Come on, come on.
Yeah, that means you should know that.
I don't
anyways,
know which pot of money is the big one. But
yeah,
no,
right,
the
right.
It's the lottery pot of money, to be
I was gonna
fair.
say the Watts pickup feels a lot like using your strategic break glass for Emma Kauf button. So
Yes, yes.
Designated player slot right there.
Two MLS mentions in the same pod. Wow, here we go.
You can do that now. Let's flip over to baseball because we are running very, very long on this recording timer. Anything that stick out to you, either of you on this list? Again, a lot of Georgia, a lot of Georgia, a lot of Tennessee, a lot of Florida. Not like it's the usual suspects, right? Like the Mariettas, the Atlantas, the Ackworths of the world, right? So
well, I think the one that I was just took an interest in was Lake Park. I don't know why my brain went to Lake. I think there's this literally like a Park Lake or Lake Park nearby Metro Atlanta, but that's actually like the first town over the Florida border, Lake Park, Georgia. So very
Hmm.
different there. That's kind of a neat pull, but otherwise, I have no strong no strong leads on any of this.
but yes, that is, let me see, eight signees for baseball plus one guy from Bristol, Connecticut. So it's good to have ESPN representation on the staff as well. Gentlemen, shall we talk a little bit about club hockey? A 2-0 win, or two wins over Alabama Huntsville, a 5-1 and a 6-0. It's been kind of a frustrating season for club hockey, so it's nice to see them get these two wins under their belt.
I would recommend going to their Instagram page, and I said I forgot the guy's name, but some dude had a sick assists in one of these games that
They called
was
it like the assist of the year or something.
it was nutty how good.
Fun. Talking about cross country, they were at NCAA South Regionals this past weekend. I have the final results here, but any notables that we want to discuss?
Yeah, individual qualifier for NCAA's. Kate Jortberg.
Hey,
The men finished eighth overall, and the women finished seventh. So, one individual qualifier, okay showings overall. But you know, that's cross country for you. So.
Seventh, eighth in a bigger conference in a year that's not the like team of destiny, from 5 years ago or whatever that was. I
yeah, I'll
Not
take
too
it.
bad. I mean, it's better than 12th.
I
Like,
think John.
you know.
I think John Higginbotham was top 35 or something. I actually did manage to turn on the ESPN coverage for like the last like 2 minutes that the race was happening, and they were scrolling down all the finishers, and we were in that range. But he was on the top top part of things, which was good to see. So we're not out of it. We're not out of it.
All right. Good stuff. Gentlemen, I think that about wraps it up in terms of content. Jake, do you have some trivia for us this week?
I do. It's really straightforward. Gents, something significant happened in our long and storied rivalry in women's basketball with the university school out east this weekend. Can you tell me what that significant milestone was?
It's like their fifth, no, not their fifth. It's like their 10th win ever over Georgia.
It was their 10th win
Oh
ever.
goodness, I forgot how bleak that season, that all-time season
That
was.
that record is legitimately depressing. Like
I forgot
it is
about
terrible.
Don't look back at historic women's basketball. Like 90s, 80s, ACC
Yeah,
results
it's not
are
great.
bleak. The
It's not
media
great.
guide for that, bleak. But pros, the fun, the smiley, happy part of this is we got it. 10 of those wins. That's great. 10 and 37 overall. This was Nell Fortner's sixth game against the school out east. What's her all-time record? In a Georgia Tech uniform. I know she coached at Auburn, but in those 6 attempts, what's Nell's record?
4-2.
5-1.
4-2. Nell is 4-2.
Go,
Michelle
let's go.
Joseph was 2-1 in her last 3 seasons. So that makes Georgia Tech since 2016-17. That makes Tech a nice 6-3. 6-3 in the last
How
9 games
about that?
against
How
them.
Are
about
you
that?
saying that they have a 6-3 record in women's basketball versus Georgia in your era,
In the
in
Jake
your
era, yeah. We'll
fandom
go with
era,
the
in the
Jake
Jake
era.
Grant
Yeah.
era?
I showed up and everything
Big.
turned around. Have
What
we
was the
beat
year
UGA in
before that?
football
Wait,
since then?
No.
Yeah,
hold on. For my own vanity, what was 15-16?
That was a 12-point loss, and that was
I don't
on the
even know
road,
why I
which I
asked.
know
Six and four.
because I was at
Yep.
the game the next year, and I know that was
Yep.
at home. So that
Uh,
would have been, yeah, not
of
as
note,
fun,
of note,
but
we're 2-1 in the clean old fashioned hate all sports series so far now as well.
yep.
So,
What a fun day. What a fun podcast for a bye
remember
week.
when we said this was going to be a fast episode
We
about
went
an hour and a half
100
ago?
minutes. 100
Hooray.
minutes. I have a game to watch too. We're running quickly into US men's national team time. This is
Oh, seemingly we always play Jamaica, but this is for a different podcast. I feel like every time I look up, we're playing Jamaica. But you guys are the experts. I'm sure there's more reasons why. But you can find us in all the usual spots from therumbleseat.com. Email at fromtherumbleseat@gmail.com. You can find us on Blue Sky. I don't know what our Blue Sky handle is. Jack probably does.
FTRS block.
Yeah, you
Gotta
can find
keep
me over there
brand
too.
uniformity.
Oh, because we do have a domain. Oh, that's good to know. You can find section 103, section103.com. You can find From the Rumble Seat on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at From the Rumble Seat. And you can find this podcast wherever fine podcasts are sold. And yeah, tell your friends. We appreciate it. Good night, good luck, and go Jackets.